Ein taktisches Rollenspiel. Wir haben versucht gerade das Spiel ein bisschen genauer festzuzurren, was wir gleich zeigen werden. Chris ist da und zeigt uns Warsaw, ein Spiel, das bald erscheinen wird und ein sehr, sehr interessanter Mix ist. Und da sind wir und wir werden heute Englisch reden, denn der gute Chris kommt aus Warschau, das ist die Hauptstadt von Polen und sein Kopfnicken verrät mir, er versteht ein kleines bisschen, aber wir wechseln auf Englisch. Hello Chris, welcome to Rocket Beans, thank you for being here, thank you for bringing Warsaw, a new upcoming game which will be released when?
On September 4th.
September the 4th?
Yes.
Oh, that's not so far away.
Not so far away at all. So Warsaw is a tactical RPG set in World War II. And this is the high concept that we're selling here. The second thing that you should probably know about the game is that it's set during the Warsaw Uprising, which is one of the defining moments for Polish history in terms of the Second World War, and one that not a lot of many people outside of Poland actually know about.
All right, and the game is as well being programmed in Warsaw?
Yes, it is. It felt fitting to actually make it in Warsaw.
Yeah, kind of. Those people, I guess, know pretty much how Warsaw looks like, and that's a factor, I guess?
Yes, it does play into that. But what we were trying to do in the game is to make sure that we actually go back to 1944.
Yes.
And we're showing the way the Warsaw looked in those events and afterwards. Actually, so we already have a workable build of the game for Switch. Plus, we're looking at other console launches as well, but we're focusing on the PC launch first,
yes.
And that's September 4. And we probably will be announcing the date of the console launches quite close to that date. We're still working on it, but we want to make sure that when we communicate the date, it's actually the one that we hit and not the one that we think we might hit.
Okay, so PC first?
Yes.
And let's have a look at it. We are playing the beginning of the game.
Yes. Okay, so the build of the game takes us to the very start. And yeah, right now it's going to be pretty quiet and just takes you into the whole setting. So this takes you to the game, and the sound that you will have heard actually are the sounds that you hear on the streets of Warsaw each August the 1st at 17 hours. That's for the commemoration of the Warsaw Uprising. It's like each 1st August in Warsaw. And that's where the whole city stops for 1 minute. Everyone just stands on the street. So we actually... Yeah, so we brought it to sort of bring this to closer to today. The map you just saw in the game is based and it's reconstructed on the actual map of the Warsaw from 1944. So each of the places, each of the streets, each of the bridges and the buildings are actually constructed based on the Warsaw from 1944.
Oh, okay, I like that.
In the game itself, the game is divided into 3 major parts. The first part is the hideout that we'll get to very soon. The second part is actually the one where you're moving through the city, you're fulfilling the orders, meeting resistance or meeting the opposing force, plus finding certain historical or random events. Mm-hmm. Plus there's also the battle screen that we are at right now. The game currently wants to teach you a lot, so now I'm kind of not going through all the text that you can see on the screen, but it's actually taking you through all the systems that are there in the game.
And that's no coincidence that this guy got the same name as you.
No, actually, no. That would be really poor taste to actually force myself there. No, actually, this is
we're trying. Coincidence.
Yeah, actually, it is. No. Actually, to be perfectly honest, there's all the hero characters are based on certain historical people or groups of people. They're not based on specific people, but they're based on certain, let's say, symbols that took part in the uprising. So there was a very famous Polish poet by the name of Krzystof.
And you're a descendant?
No, actually, we don't have a rule where we're naming everyone with the first name. That's not really Polish.
Right. All right.
Yeah, but still, that's yeah. But you had to bring it up.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No, but still, yeah, fair deal. Okay, so what really matters in the game is that there's actually 2 ranks, 2 files, let's say, of the people. you see the upper and the lower one.
Yeah.
That represents the firefight and close combat firefights, which was specific to Warsaw Uprising, because it takes you to... actually, this is supposed to represent the way of flanking during the firefights. Okay. So whenever you're attacking someone from one lane and he's in the other lane, but not the one facing you, it means that you're flanking that character. So one thing that's really crucial when you're taking part in the battle is actually to make sure that you're constantly trying to find spots which give you the best effective attacks to approach the enemy. And this is basically something that is being taught about throughout tutorial right now. And it's important, yeah, and as you can see, you're only using Krzystof, right? That's because obviously I forced that. Yeah, so actually what you're learning right now is the positioning.
You can move them.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because basically that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to move your characters and to use them to actually find the best spot for your weapon, which is effective from certain spots against certain other spots.
All right.
So now, as you could see, the arrows indicate that you were actually flanking this enemy, and you were actually you dealt him bigger damage than you would have if you were sitting across from him.
Yes, I got that.
Now we made sure that at first all the characters are actually divided into like kind of three major roles. You have your damage dealer, which is Krzystof. You have your healer, which is Jadwiga. And you have the smuggler, who's a support. All of them have this like kind of three different skills that are easy to grasp, easy to understand, and that make it. They speak to you in a language that you understand, because you might not be very familiar with the classes otherwise. So we're trying to make sure that each of the characters represents a class that's understandable for someone who plays RPGs.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they represent the classes of people, or the people that actually fought in the uprising.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And 3 people is the team, or are there going to be more?
No, actually, the teams can take up until 4 people. 4. And you will actually get to uncover or unlock certain other hero characters for when you will be progressing through the game, encountering them in events, and basically getting them to join you.
Yeah. So you can search for them, and you might not even find them in your first playthrough?
Yes, actually, it's very possible, and this is exactly something that we are hoping. Currently, as you can see, there's barricades here because we want to streamline your movement, because this is still a tutorial mission. So we want to make sure that you're progressing through it in a way where we want you to go.
In the beginning.
Yes, to understand the tactics, the mechanics, and everything that's underneath. So right now, since the game is still in the testing phase, and we're still working on quite a few systems, and this build is probably like 3 weeks old, so not everything is already kind of in place. Yeah, but we wanted to make sure that we can bring some code to show to you guys and your viewers, to make sure that you know what the game is about. Now, the screen you see here is basically the screen that tells you where the uprising is at the moment. Okay, so we need like a little bit of history to understand what's happening. Is that uprising failed. The Warsaw Uprising failed. So it's not actually a spoiler, but it failed. It ended in a near total destruction of the city and the death of hundreds of thousands of people. So it wouldn't make for a very, let's say, obvious subject for making a game about, but we knew that it's a powerful story and one that will resonate with people, or people will want to find about it once they decide that the game is compelling, arresting visually, and something that they want to play. Because we don't treat the game as something that we want to be a history lesson for everyone, because once you start throwing the words history and education, that's when you kill your game. So the game is compelling first, beautiful, hopefully, second, and one that you really want to kind of bite into. And only if you enjoy the game, only if you get kind of into it and start playing it, start getting to know the characters, caring for them, evolving them, promoting them, sending them out to missions, you will encounter events which are based on historical events. Yeah. You will find out that the uprising lasts 63 days because your goal in the game, since the uprising is not one you can actually win, your goal is to actually make sure that your hero characters survive the uprising. And that's your goal. You can't win the uprising, but you can make sure that your heroes turn are actually survivors and not the victims.
All right. So you can't change history?
No, you can't.
But you can bring your guy through.
Yes, and basically, if what we set out to do is, if we decided that you can actually win the uprising, that will make it okay. We could make any game whatsoever.
Sure.
It wouldn't have to be based around Warsaw Uprising.
Yeah.
Okay, so now going through what you see here is the hideout screen is basically where you're planning every single move that you have. You have your hero characters that you can sort of get their backgrounds, you can find the information on them, you can promote them to actually make sure that they're evolving and that you have some skills that you can use on your battlefield. We've unlocked 4 additional characters for this build of the game, so that you are able to see what kind of skills they have, what do they do, how do these skills play into your specific playthrough. But the thing is that you will never have everything at your disposal. You might only unlock a couple of the guys on your first playthrough. You might not get enough medals to actually promote them, to make sure that you're using some of those skills. So it's a pretty deep layer consisting of weapon skills, character skills, actual characters that you uncover, plus what you're up against.
So if you got one guy which you like pretty much and he dies, is this a permadeath game?
Yes,
He's done?
For this playthrough he is, and we're hoping that on your first playthrough you won't be able to finish the game. And so on the second, third and fourth. But on the 5th or 6th, you will already understand how your characters play into the way you want to play. You will understand which weapons are the best, how you want to conserve your ammo, how to use your resources to make sure that you're actually fighting the opposition and standing up to them properly. Because again, trying to kind of put some historical layer on the game is if you decide you want to if you basically follow a certain path, you see that actually uprising, historically uprising was meeting harder resistance with each coming day. We're trying to emulate that to make sure that like in the initial stage, the uprising, when it started, was actually facing not a very strong opposition, but then the opposition was reinforced by tanks, by heavy armored units and heavy weapon units and more skilled units. And that's basically what happens in the game. So you want to make sure you send out your guys to the mission so that they can earn their promotion, they can actually get new skills, and they can basically become more capable of encountering and getting the damage they want to do.
All right, so we got some examples of those skills over here.
Yeah, so basically each of the skill is good for something. The character skills are usually good for debuffing, positioning, movement, healing, and this is the combination that you want to make. If you go to the weapon skills, you will see that the weapon skills actually make it easier or make it possible for you to actually attack characters.
Okay.
Each of the characters has their speciality. For example, Halina, she's a sapper or a miner.
Yeah.
As in miner, as a girl who actually knows how to handle mines, not a guy who digs in or a girl who digs in the ground.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you actually get her skills that you might feel will be useful to you, and then you will also make sure that you actually get the right skills equipped, because you don't have to equip all the skills. You might just decide that you want her to have all the weapon skills. And if I set her out like that, she only has weapon skills right now. Yeah. And these are based on the type of weapon she's assigned to. Yeah. If you want to, you might just have her outfitted with her particular skills. So depending on the type of mission that you're undertaking, some skills might be more useful than the others.
Okay, so do you change the skills between the missions?
Yes.
And you can take back a skill. Why would you do that?
No, actually, you only have a limited amount of skills that you can take for your mission.
Yeah.
They are tied to...
okay, and then you choose 5 out of 10?
Yeah, basically you choose 4 out of... initially, let's say 6 or 8 or 10 or 12.
Yes.
And there's also like the weapon skills, as I mentioned, and that means that you basically have a different type of character. I mean, for some weapons are heavy weapons. There's pistols, there's revolvers, machine guns, machine pistols, machine guns and rifles. So there's a pretty big variety of that. So and depending on which character you really you really want to bring for your action, that's what you basically do.
Okay, so you have to pick your favorites. You can't bring all of them through, level them up to the max.
Yes.
All of them. They all got limited time. You got limited resources. You got to bring them through, but they won't all be superheroes at the end of the day.
Exactly. And you will always have to decide, depending on where you are, and basically depending on which character you're choosing to go for your mission. You might find out that you want to take your character on one playthrough in a totally different route.
Yes.
Because all the other characters are not really supporting his or her playstyle.
Mm-hmm.
There's also your guy with your basically the uprising diary that tells you everything that you need to know about certain characters, about the way they are, about the way they work, and their role that they play in the game.
Yes.
So we have a pretty big. There's a pretty deep underlying system of information that if you want to get into, you actually will be able to.
Yes,
one
I
of
like
the,
that.
Yeah, one of the examples that we like to bring here is the Berlin soldier, because we're trying to make sure that the classes in the characters are actually based on, as I mentioned, groups of people or units that were taking part in the uprising.
Yeah.
And the Berlin soldiers were actually historically they were the soldiers that were kind of closed and brought by the Red Army to support. And they were in support of the, let's say, Eastern course of after-war politics. Whereas the uprising was actually started as historically by the government in exile to actually overthrow the oppressors to make sure that, they were supporting the West, in short. So when you had the Berlin soldiers historically, they were stationed with the Red Army and they were thrown to support the uprising, but they were decimated. Historically, they were decimated and they were not really used to urban warfare. So he's a soldier. He's wearing similar to kind of Russian type of equipment. He's well armed, but his skills are mostly again based on getting to charging up front and making sure he's up there where he's susceptible to fire. So we're trying to make sure that the history part plays into the way the character on the class of the character actually plays. So if you will be playing him just as your tank, as your front runner, it's cool. You don't have to go into the history part. But if you try to find out like what these guys did or what their role was, you will find that this is actually based on history. And that's how we want to approach this.
So how deep is this based on history? I can imagine that. I see women down there on your bar. Then there women are fighting as well.
Yes.
Right here as a some kind of a doctor. Do we have kids there as well?
Yes. So as I mentioned, and I will get to it right now. As I mentioned, we're trying to make sure that all the kind of groups of people that were fighting the uprising are represented. So one of the symbols of the uprising was the woman paramedic. And these girls were very brave. They were helping the uprising guys, usually under fire, usually in very threatening situations. A lot of them, unfortunately, died. But this is one of the symbols of the uprising. A girl who's helping her guys who are injured or who are traumatized during combat. On the second hand, because obviously this is one of the questions that we have quite a lot, this is Franek. So we had Grey Ranks, which is basically the scout group in Poland. They were taking part in the uprising, usually as postmen, as deliverymen, or liaisons. But some of these guys were really young kids, and Nazis didn't really differentiate between who they were targeting. So we don't want to push kind of the narrative, so we have kids fighting in war, and that's the way it played out. But these guys were there, these guys were victims, and these guys were survivors as well. So we're trying to make sure that with each character, he represents something that's important for the uprising or for the way we see uprising.
Okay.
And obviously this is something that a lot of people are talking about, because right now it's best to not talk about certain things. Just put like, we should have like all guys fighting the war, and that's it. But there were women, there were kids, there were civilians, and we're trying to show each of those groups.
Yes, they make the most interesting stories.
Yes, exactly. And also this is something that you will want to know, like what this guy's story is. And as I mentioned, even though we base them on certain groups, not any of those characters is based specifically on very specific person. Even though I said the different thing about the home army guy, Krzystof, but he's kind of amalgamation of a couple of characters.
Oh, okay.
So we're trying to make sure that it's like you don't see this like one person, because we don't want to offend anyone whose kids or grandkids still live in Warsaw and who might say, oh, I don't feel that my grandfather was like that. And I don't feel I want him portrayed like that in the game.
All right.
So we want to make sure that the map of the city, the layout of the city, the weapons, the types of weapons which are used by both sides are based on facts. But we want to make sure that the hero characters we're treating them differently. We don't want them we don't want anyone to say, oh yeah, so this is the guy.
You were talking about the map of Warsaw. Can we see this map right now? And
yeah, sure.
Could you show it as a whole?
Yeah, okay. So first, when you're planning the mission, that's the layout of the Warsaw, which is based on the Warsaw that was portrayed in the day. Now, this is the closer look of the way that Warsaw was divided into districts. And the symbol that you see here is one of the famous symbol of the uprising.
Yes.
It's actually the fighting Poland, the P and W. And it was used as a kind of propaganda tool by the insurgents. They were installing it and painting it on different places to actually show that there's still an underground movement in Poland. So when you start getting your mission, you see that currently we have just a couple of types of missions that you undertake. In the final game, there's around 20 different types of missions, and all these missions influence the whole momentum of the uprising, which is the whole kind of where the uprising is at the moment and how you are influencing the uprising. So here's the moment when you are using the characters that you want to tackle this specific mission.
Up to 4, you said?
Yeah, up to 4, yeah.
And those 8 are just the positions. You can't make it full.
No, actually, no. You can put them wherever you want. But this is the way it's gonna look when you start your lineup. And actually, this is already the first moment when you're actively doing something that will be reflected on the battlefield. Because if you had done your due diligence, which I didn't right now, you would have made sure that all the characters are using weapons and skills that are effective from the places where they start.
Yeah.
Because that's how you want them to encounter go into encounters, and this is going to be reflected by what you do. Okay, there's different types of events like the ones that you see right now.
Was this a random event? Right?
Yes, okay. This is random one. So we have historical events that only happen on given dates in certain places if you're there, and these are based on historical events of the Warsaw Uprising. There's the second type, which are random events, which are actually ones that could have happened. Like, for example, you could find a booby trap, a weapon. All the weapons that you could find in the uprising were booby trapped. So obviously, we can't say that this was a specific event that happened on this day in this particular place, but this is one that could have happened 100 of times.
Okay.
So this is the type of random events. There's also character specific events, which are actually tied to their background stories, which are actually making sure that these only happen to your characters and you get to know them better. Plus, there's also a couple of kind of historically accurate ones that people be surprised by, let's say. And these are the ones which actually take a bigger narrative and they show you certain angles and certain things that might happen.
Okay. You just had an event and you had the possibility to choose some answers.
Yes.
This was the event. Now you got some loot and you're moving.
Okay. So basically, we're just showing you different types of things that can happen on map. What's not yet available in this build is actually the enemy units right now are basically unmovable. You actually encounter them, you go them, charge them, and you start tackling them. They will be able to chase you on the map. You will be able to make your decisions to go around them and make sure that you can actually go around.
But just one more thing about the map. How is it? How far can you go with your team? I mean, is there some kind of day cycle or
there is, and we'll get to it. There's an AP system which is available on the map. And you can actually see that it gives you a certain amount of time that you have to devote to actually fulfilling your mission.
Yes.
If you don't, you fail the mission and you don't progress and you don't help the uprising, which is obviously something that you really want to do.
Okay. And that's the action part. That's usually what happens if you have an encounter. Two groups standing
Yes.
opposing each other. You can choose your stance or your position according to the enemy. You got like little fortifications there.
Yes.
Did she build this?
No,
just
actually, she
yet?
reinforced it.
She reinforced it. All
So,
right.
so with different skills. So she's the miner and the sapper.
Yes.
Plus, she's good at engineering as well.
Yeah.
So that's her skill, and she actually can make the obstacles explode on the other side. So there's
right.
a couple of things that you can do with your characters, and you can actually make sure that they are good against certain things. For example, she has an attack that we brought here. That if she encounters a tank, she's better against heavy weapons.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. You need to make sure that you're prepared for everything when you're going through your to your mission.
Because you never know.
Yeah, because you never know. And still, since you might lose your characters, you want to make sure that they are actually that you can fill out certain roles if you lose someone. So it's right now when you're playing the game like we are here, and it's made just playing so that you can see what kind of things you can actually do. It's you're not really taking into account like sitting and planning which types of weapons do you take and where do we attack and where from, to make sure that you have every single spot covered through the characters that you have on board.
Can we for a second concentrate on the things you are thinking right now in this action part? I would like to see which skills you are choosing and why you are choosing them.
Okay. So in short, because there's quite a few information here. As you can see, this is the skill which, like the blue dots. The blue dots in the upper part of the description, up under bow down, they show you where the skill, is effective from. So, in short, where do you need to be positioned to be able to use them?
Yeah.
The red dots show where exactly can you attack from this spot. So you can see you can attack every single spot.
Yeah.
But there shows you an area that you attack. So it shows you that with this particular attack from a machine gun, heavy machine gun, you can actually attack 3 different fields. So if I just took it, if I use it, I can see that there's like 3 red dots highlighted. And it means I would have attacked this spot. But since this is an upper rank, and this is above the heads of these guys, this is the one I want to attack.
Sure.
Because they are here. Yeah. And now, since she's in the upper rank, she attacks them as if she had flanked them.
So these are more damage.
Yeah, which gives more damage. So in short, if you're going for the mow down again,
Okay, 19
so you can see
damage, accuracy,
you can see the required ammo, because right now we're making sure that actually anyone playing the game can actually have easy time going through it. So we're not making sure that it's as difficult as it will be in the final game. So you will want to see like, okay, so I can attack 3 guys, but I'm using quite a lot of ammo. And it's the heavy ammo, which is something that's not really easy to get a hold of. Then you can see what type of damage it deals, but you also need to take into account that you actually already used one of her moves, and her stamina is at 2 right now, which means her accuracy is not as good as if she was fully. This is under the blue bar.
I see it.
Yeah.
All right.
So actually, there's quite a few things that you need to take into account. So, for example, you could say like, I want just to use her because her attacks are really powerful, but they deplete ammo very fast. She gets tired and she might not hit the enemy on the target, and this might not be a very good idea. So obviously you have skills that help the stamina. You have skills that actually make sure that you can have more actions per round. So there's a whole system here that you need to sort of delve into.
So come on, shoot at them.
Yeah, I know.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And the arrow, as I mentioned, shows that you've kind of flanked them.
Yes.
But actually, this is also a heavy machine guy, so he can do the same. Plus, as you could see, he was trying to suppress them. And when a unit is under suppression, he can't move. So we're simulating the actual kind of battlefield with weapons, where if you're under suppression, you don't move. You're just too scared or too afraid to do so.
All right. So what you're choosing here?
So actually, this is another attack, but this is what I actually mentioned. So
sounds defensive.
Yeah, this is something that actually makes sure that the attacks are centered on our guy.
All right.
And basically, he runs in front of the other characters, makes them stand behind him, and puts taunt on himself to make sure that he's actually getting the attacks from others.
Yeah, but he's behind cover.
Yes, but he's behind cover, exactly.
Yes.
So actually what it meant right now for our poor Krzystof is that because as a result of this move, he moved his spot.
Yes.
So we didn't have to move him on our own using his skill.
All right, so you saved the move.
Yes, but his weapon and his skills are unavailable from this spot.
Oh.
So actually you need to kind of look into two steps forward. But we have a skill here, which is called maintain formation, which actually makes our officer guy, makes everyone go back to their positions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You're choosing that right now? All right. Okay.
And he actually makes, so for example, if the mission was, okay, so actually they were like that. Yeah, so he went, this is their starting position.
All right.
Yeah, but so actually we lost that one.
Okay.
But actually what this would usually mean that if you had your people move around the battlefield,
yes,
and you didn't want to move them specifically one by one, using their kind of, their action, you actually can use his skill to do that. Mm-hmm. And again, this is obviously based because he's the officer, and that's how you would think he's gonna work. Plus, some of the skills, like for example, Krzystof here, he's not equipped with retaliation skill. But the background for Krzystof is that he was born on Żoliborz. This is one of the districts of Warsaw, and he loves the people, he loves the place, and he's very passionate about it. So some of his skills are about retaliation, so that when his units are attacked, he retaliates, he shoots back. So again,
automatic.
Yeah. Okay. So again, this is a system that you've seen in different games, but we're making sure that it's interwoven in the narrative, that you understand where this is coming from.
All right, I see what you're aiming at. Yeah.
And this is something that we really want to. This is something that we really want to do, is to make sure that you actually make sure that this is something that you see after you start kind of reading on your hero characters. You start to see where they come from.
Okay.
And we hope that this will result in you actually caring for them.
Wait a second, please.
Whoops, sorry.
I have to see the faint activity down there. What's that?
Okay,
that sounds
so
interesting.
Actually, he actually taunts.
Targeted.
He taunts enemy on himself.
Yeah.
So that's one
taunt. Okay.
Yeah.
To target obstacle. All right.
Yeah. Whoops. Okay. So he actually makes the enemy target the. So we actually have two taunts right now.
Okay.
But since we already each, as you can see, like on the upper part of the screen,
right.
These represent your action points, and these represent the opposition action points. What they correspond is to the amount of units you have on the field. So actually, right now, since we already took care of some of the guys on the other side, they only have one action. So this should be kind of pretty easy to get rid of him. Unless we're using...
Okay, but those action points you can't distribute as you like. Every guy got one action point, and you can't put 4 on 1.
No, actually you can.
You can.
But you can use...
Oh, right.
Okay, so you can use any of those on any of the characters. But as you can see, there's only 3 stamina points. So if you use 3 action points consecutively on one character, like his final... he won't be able to do anything after the third move.
And do they get those back every round?
Yeah, they do.
1 stamina point every round?
Yes. All right. Plus there's skills that actually give you stamina back. So every system that you see, be it with attacking, with obstacles, with stamina, with buffs, with debuffs, everything has its place, and everything works to an extent. Plus Unity works so that it actually makes the percentages way lower than you would expect them to be. That's why we can't get this guy. Yeah, so we're make sure. Yeah, so actually Krzystof, as you can see, Krzystof is overpowered. Now this is still being balanced down, so actually a lot of these things work.
Okay,
so actually,
you did it.
Yeah, so actually that was actually our mission. And
okay,
yeah.
So what exactly is your mission? To put it on point, when have you finished the game? At what point?
At the 63-day limit.
At the 63-day limit?
Yes.
All right. What happened in history after 63 days?
Okay, basically 63 days is the time that the uprising lasted.
All right.
And then it basically the uprising failed.
Yes.
So so that's what happened. Basically it was there were negotiations to actually to stop the uprising between the command and...
I like that. That makes the game like...
it gives you set time.
Set time. You can overview this, not too big. Okay, I got those 2 months.
Yes, 3 months.
And 3 months?
No, two and a couple of days. Yeah, sorry.
And I like that because you got this kind of are there some roguelike elements in there that some. You said this is historically correct, but
yes.
you still got those random events, right?
Yes.
So is it from time to time easier and sometimes more difficult to get through the game depending on the randomness?
Yes, exactly. So the roguelite element is there, but probably not if we obviously, if you start studying the roguelite, it's very different, and there's a certain
only little
set of rules.
Not,
yes.
All right, I got it.
So what we're trying to make sure that you see is that you actually there's random elements in the game that you encounter because we want you or would like you to play the game on numerous occasions.
Yes.
You won't be able to go and make sure that all your hero characters make it through alive to the end. We don't expect you to, but we want you to you get 4 of them on your let's say on your 5th try. Yeah. You get 4 of them. You get to know their stories and their kind of endings. But then you will want to uncover another one and another one and another one.
Yes.
There's also some historical events that you won't encounter on your subsequent playthroughs. We will be adding hero characters additionally free of charge after the release of the game. Currently, we've announced 12. There's actually 15 that's coming out. And we have more that are still coming. So we want to make sure that we support the game afterwards because the hero characters are the people that you will be caring about most. And that's what we're trying to also say, that any conflict is about people. And any conflict is about making sure that people are survivors and the victims. There's no victors in any war. Everyone's just a victim or a survivor. And this is kind of something that we're not pushing it out on you, but this is something that we sort of want you to arrive at when you're playing the game because that's what you're doing.
Okay, so the game got some depth to it, but you are not. It's not mandatory. You don't have to get through all the historical stuff.
No, you don't.
But you are betting on that. You develop an interest while playing the game.
Yes. So
yes.
Okay. We announced the game on 26th of February. We worked with GameSpot to make sure that there was an exclusive reveal. And we didn't come at it from an angle like, oh, here's a game about Warsaw Uprising. Probably everyone wants to know about that. Because no one does.
Yes.
No one knows. Okay, we don't expect anyone outside of Poland to actually know that there was a Warsaw Uprising. Best case scenario, people confuse Warsaw Uprising with the Ghetto Uprising. So and these are two separate things.
Right, yeah.
So what we want to do is we set this up as a tactical RPG set in World War II. And that's how we want everyone to approach the game. To see that usually with World War II games, you have your simulation games, you have first-person shooter or strategy games, and that's it. So coming at this from tactical RPG angle is already interesting. It's also already something different. Then with tactical RPGs, you usually go with space and lasers or magic and swords.
Yeah.
So if you put it in a World War II setting, again, this is something not very obvious. And as the last kind of straw is the visuals, which Lucian, the guy who's behind the artwork, is a very talented guy. He's doing great stuff.
Yes.
And basically we wanted to take advantage of that and also to show Second World War in an unusual light.
Yeah.
Because this is not usually the context you would see. You would usually see very realistic graphics when it comes down to World War II. And we're going for a specific vibe where this is not what you're expecting.
No, not really. Sure. I mean, it's a hard topic, but you're going with cartoons. Cartoons usually are nice, but you're going a bit more dark.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty deep.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully that's what people will think.
Yeah, I guess so. So, do you think you gave a pretty nice overview of your game, or did you forget something, or did we cover all elements? I mean, we saw the Warsaw map. How we did move on there?
In terms of the whole game, I think we've covered quite a lot.
Yes.
It's important to note that there's still a lot of things which are being worked on at the game right now.
Yeah.
The important thing is that we're working with like 3 different historians that make sure that what we sell here or what we're showing is actually, yes, but factually correct.
Factually.
We don't want to sort of sell any narrative. We don't want to say, oh, the uprising was great or it was a tragedy. We're not putting this in front of you. We're just putting out facts. And we're making sure that there's a guy who's making sure that the dialogue, which will be spoken during the combat only, is right there on spot with the way that people spoke in 1944. Plus, we're also making sure that it's only Polish and German that you will hear. Because this is a game about a specific conflict, and it's not made purposefully easy so that it's accessible to people speaking English. What we want to do is to give it the proper flavor. So the names like Krzystof, Bronisław, Przemysław, they're not your easy Polish names.
Yeah.
They're proper Polish names, but not like Jan, Maria, or any name that would be easy to pronounce just for the sake of it. So we're trying to push, on one hand, like the really kind of exotic Polish angle, which isn't exotic to us because we know it, but it is exotic to anyone outside of Poland. We also want to make sure that the weapons, their armaments, the type of units are actually consulted with our historian, and a guy who was actually getting his doctorate, junior doctorate in Germany as well. And this is a Polish historian who wrote a book on the Warsaw Uprising, Łukasz. And again, his notes on any facet of the game are interesting reading themselves. Like, for example, one of the examples is one of the characters in the original story. He was born in a policeman family, and he went to the wrong side of the tracks. And he said, like, there's no way the authority that you would have as a uniformed soldier or policeman or postman in a pre-war Poland would make it that his kid would never go to the wrong side of the tracks because he would be looking up to his father too much. And this is the type of insight that he gives to make sure that the stories of the characters are actually grounded in reality. Plus we have a person overseeing the whole historical stuff to make sure that any facts that we propose are actual facts and not the way we want to tell the story.
I like that, and I think this is giving the game an own twist. And I like what I saw. I like. I don't really like drawing comparisons to other games, but I read that many people compare this to Darkest Dungeon, which I can imagine because of the style, but also because of the fighting. So people standing in front of each other. I heard people comparing this to a very great game called This War of Mine.
Yes, we've had that.
And I think you can already be proud of that, being compared to those huge and very interesting games. I hope this will be very successful. You said release will be 5th of...
No, 4th. It's 4th? Actually 4th of September.
4th of September.
It's coming out on PC. You will be able to get it on Steam.
On Steam, all right.
And we're also obviously going to follow up with console versions as well. One thing which might be interesting is that we're also applying, since the game follows a historical narrative, we're applying to USK to make sure that the game can be sold using the Nazi swastikas, to make sure that it's actually appropriately historical. And we're already in the discussions where this is something that has been initially approved. So we want to make sure that this is actually reflecting on certain historical events, because this is something that if people want to dig in there, they will be able to discover a lot about the Warsaw Uprising. If they want, and they just want to play the game for its visuals, for its structure, for the fights, it's perfectly okay. We don't expect anyone to come out of this saying, oh, I need to learn my history, or feel ashamed that they don't know history. No, everyone knows the right amount of history, but we're hoping that games, as music or any other media, can actually make sure that you are the person to hear those stories. And one of the things that I sort of like to say when we're like kind of on this tour is when we're showing the game at PAX in Boston, we actually had a gentleman come over and he said like, oh, Warsaw Uprising. And we said, and how do you know about Warsaw Uprising? He said, from a Sabaton song, because they have a song on Warsaw Uprising. So hopefully like in a year or 2 years time, when someone will be like, oh, I know about Warsaw Uprising, like, where did you pick it up? Oh, in a Warsaw game.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And your game's interesting as well. I think it's an intelligent game. Don't underestimate your buyers. That they don't all want to get the usual stuff. They too want to learn more about history. And I think it's a very interesting topic. I think it's presented pretty interesting and pretty beautiful. Thank you for letting us have a look at this.
It's a pleasure, really.
And I wish you good luck with this game. And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Krzystof. Danke an euch, dass ihr zugeschaut habt. Das war ein erster Eindruck von Warsaw. Und how do you pronounce this?
Well, actually, the name of Warszawa is the name of the city, but the game's called Warsaw. So we want to make sure that it's the kind of easy, accessible. Plus, there's the word war in it. So that's kind of the way we wanted to approach it. So the city's name is Warszawa, but the game's called Warsaw.
Okay. Also, haben wir wieder was gelernt? Oder vielleicht auch nicht. Vielleicht auch mal gucken. Zumindest, wenn ihr dieses Spiel spielt. Kommt bald raus. Das war's von uns. Tschüss, bis zum nächsten Mal.
Tschüss.